going to start this up just a few minutes early to make sure some of these technical changes don't crash everything and that we will in fact be able to achieve a stable bit rate. Come on, you can stabilize. You can stabilize. Buffering stuff. 1080p source. Alright, watching that stream health chart. Watching it, waiting for it to update. It's telling me excellent. It's telling me excellent. So we'll just keep an eye on that. I'll close the stream in stream so that yeah. So I changed a bunch of settings. And that's kind of going all over the place. We'll see if that can stabilize in a sec here. So I changed a couple settings in OBS, and we'll see how that plays out. But basically, I upped the CPU load so that things should look crisper. And I also upped the bit rate. So, yeah. Hopefully things should just end up looking really nice. It should end up looking nicer at the expense of taking more time to actually stabilize the output. But everything should just end up looking nicer. It looks like it's stable now. It was rough for a bit there. It's not necessarily going to make the game look any better. So these are broader changes to make kind of everything look better, not to make specifically Amy look better. Also, we added a bunch of new stuff. I finally got that other timer going, and hopefully that'll work good and well. And there was something else that I needed to do. Oh, right. One sec. We're just going to go black for a moment. And I'm going to change a setting. Oh, wait. There it was. I just saw it. There it is. Okay. There we go. Speedrun. There we go. Yeah, we have timers and like junk all over the screen. Like, look how much junk I added to the screen. So much junk. It's all over the screen now. And it's not just my normal junk, it's extra junk, it's bonus junk. Also, I added. What did I add? I added. No, I didn't add. I checked into the recent OBS documentation, and a few months ago, they finally added direct source monitoring. So I can now, for the first time, actually hear the game. Yeah, so I can actually hear the game for once, and we'll see. I shouldn't say for once. I used to obviously, I have heard the game. But now I can actually properly hear the game as I'm playing it. Normally that's only when I'm offline, just because of the way that I've got things set up. It's a little bit weird routing everything through from the PS3 so that it's also going out to the stream, but also to my headphones. But then my headphones can also hear all of the other things that I need to hear. And so, yeah, I'm rambling. I'm a little rambling right now. Also on the plus side with the super plus side, with the monitoring is that I actually like I can hear it in its relative volume. So if I turn it down in stream, it should mean that we shouldn't really end up with too many more times in future streams where it's like the audio is like way too quiet or way too loud and it's like drowning me out and stuff like that. And 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 also now I can suffer long on Monday. Though actually I'm gonna need to find it might be a little bit weird. So because of the way that the call gets routed in. Okay, so the monitor doesn't self-filter. So it just gets sent out to my headphones, which means that it's actually playing as desktop audio. And so the call that's coming in is also desktop audio. And so you end up with two. I've now turned desktop audio back on. So if there's a delay, I don't know entirely what it sounds like right now because I'm not listening to the concatenated stream. But just based on the VU meters bouncing, it looks to me like they are slightly out of sync. That the two versions of the music, because it goes through the capture card into the monitor and then the monitor back into OBS through desktop audio, and yeah. So that'll be an issue for future Dan to deal with. So everybody doing all right? Everybody feeling good? I'm feeling okay. I'm gonna just loosen up here real quick. And yeah, so Vexel beat my world record 2 days ago, a couple days ago, back on Monday. She beat my record. So reclaimed it, 43-49. I don't know if I'm gonna beat that, but we will see. And I think let's just jump into it. Let's just go. All right. 3, 2, 1, start. Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to practice my presentation too much this week. In little bits and starts. But last week's presentation was great. It's the one that I'm using as the backbone, for the script that I'm going to write and going to practice. Write and practice that script. We got a while. I'm not even going to be able to submit the run until like later in the year because so like it turns out that run submissions are only available for a limited period of time. And oh, cool. Well, that'll actually speed me up. The audio for the chapter comes in before the chapter actually finishes loading, so you can skip those opening cutscenes a little bit faster. Also, another change, and we'll see if this screws me over, is I have reset the brightness and gamma to their default settings. So we're going to be doing this run this week. It might be too dark to see, but we'll see how that goes. Oh, right, because things like that, where it's like, oh, that guy's just over on that side there, and it's actually like really hard to remember that he's there if you can't see him in the shadows. All right. Oh, I can't see anything. Oh, this game is so awful. Oh. Not only did I like so actually I didn't quite set them back to default. I set them to where it tells you because it gives you the instructions like, "Oh, change it until uh you know the dark symbol is like barely visible." And so I actually, I set it to where they tell you to have it. And yeah. Oh boy. Oh boy. This is the intended experience. But it also means Lana's hair is not going to look quite as radioactive as it often does. A couple days ago, actually tried to do the speed run on normal mode, like or original, just to see if there was anything kind of special or different about it. But I gave up about halfway through because it doesn't really change anything. It just changes the checkpoint locations, which is kind of an interesting thing. So if you go back to original mode, or at least as far as I got, it only changed checkpoint locations. Oh, sweet. Come on. No, come on. Get out of the doorway. 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 He like went and stood in the exact worst spot that he could have possibly stood. No, we don't ever find out why a taxi driver would have would have a what I would imagine to be extremely illegal device, or at least highly controlled. All right, we got to turn. We got to pivot that way so that Amy just doesn't get ripped out of our hands. You can call me Cello, 'cause you's a friend. Oh God, I hate this guy so much. Yeah, it's just kind of lightly implied that he's a criminal. It's it's distracting. It's actually distracting. Finally hearing them. It's like I'm so used to like not having to have any of my brain occupied with the sounds. So that's something I guess I'll have to keep in mind. Heck, this time I might discover that there's actually a whole bunch of audio cues that I normally miss. Maybe that's why Vex keeps beating me. She can hear the audio. Door's locked. Oh, Go away. Go away. We don't want to listen to you, Cello. No one wants to listen to you. I regret turning the brightness down. Wait, where did Cello go? Did he actually like disappear? Did I just not see him because of the brightness settings? Come on. Oh. No, she didn't do it. Come on, get out of the way, Cello. I totally got that the first time. Like, she was... frick. All right. We're losing a couple seconds there, but... No, come on. Oh, I can't see the door. Come on, Amy. Grab my hand. Everything is awful. Oh, and there, we're out of stamina. How are we out of stamina already? And Cello's right behind us. Everything is bad. Everything sucks. Lost Amy on the wall again. No, get out of the way, Cello. I can't see the ladder. Oh. All right. And... not bad. I mean, not great, but not bad. That actually wasn't too awful at all. I mean, obviously it was slower, but it wasn't like dramatically slower. it is looking like I'm getting just a less stable bitrate, so I might turn it back down. I didn't even turn it up by that much, but it's up just enough that it seems to be causing issues. All right, forced jump scare. Bill. All right, grab the card. Through the door. Blood under the door. No, come on. And reload. Okay. Come on. I know I'm standing on it. No. There we go. All right. I should be... Yeah. Okay. And good enough. Okay, we're going to zip down this hallway, and lots of stuff still not loaded. I like it more with the brightness turned up, because you can see the awful details. Make sure we hit that guy, get the checkpoint, back to checkpoint. That was some good menuing there. That was some top-tier menuing. Top-tier menuing. Come on, Amy, grab my hand. All right. Navigate Amy out of the room without losing her on the door. Almost impossible most of the time. The doors are way too narrow for a game where you need to like constantly walk through, hand in hand. It's kind of funny how hostile the geometry is to the game's core premise. It's really funny. Oh, we got one of the guys. That was a really not good... this is not a good chapter 2. Oh, and then go and get caught on that because I can't actually see the ground. However, locking Amy in here did ensure that she didn't follow me. So I'm turning my brightness and gamma back up next time. We might actually do a second today because this one's going not very well. All right, interrupt him. I mean, it's still gonna be good. It's still probably gonna be sub 50 at the rate that we're going. But yeah. 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 I dropped her hand just a moment too soon. All right, interrupt that guy so that he doesn't shoot us while we run down the hall in through here. Open this with the orange key card that we never bothered to actually pick up that we got when we reloaded the checkpoint. Come down around this corner. Stop. Pump ourselves full of drugs so that we can serve. Oh no! Did that? Oh. Okay. Well. Huh. I can't see the ground. I can't navigate around any of the puddles because I can't see the ground. Oh, this is bad. All right. Oh, a minute slow. A minute slow. And just watch, I'm going to get like my best chapter 3 ever. All right. Okay. Here we go. Any second now. All right. Amy, make sure you're holding my hand. Amy. Holding my hand. Amy. We keep trying. So we've been working really hard to speed up chapter 3 here, just because of how obnoxious it is, and obviously, like, missing the ladder doesn't do anything to help. Oh. 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 Frick. If I miss that, I can never get back on it. So... you got to cut that corner at, like, just the right angle, because if you hit it wrong, when you're cutting that corner, if you hit that corner wrong, then you end up stuck where I was in between the wall and the piece of junk on the ground. One of the big problems with chapter 3, with finding any skips in chapter 3, is unfortunately there's, like, no checkpoints. Oh. No. All right, but we got all of them. We got all the Jareds. No more Jareds. And we get to... No, no, Amy, grab my hand. And Amy got left up there. Great. Joy. Joy, fantastic. Come on, grab my hand. There we go. What? Oh, what? Yeah, definitely gonna turn. I know it's like all I'm talking about on this run, but I'm definitely turning the brightness and gamma back up, purely because it's just adding to all of the normal frustration of the game. It's like it's atrocious as is, and being harder to see on top of that isn't a great improvement. It isn't an improvement of anything. It's literally not an improvement. It's the opposite of an improvement. I can't see that doorway at all. I had no idea if I was actually going to make it through that doorway by at least a magnitude. All right. Oh, come on. Fire it. There we go. I made the mistake of tapping R1 again. That's my mistake that I keep making after that button. Is I'm so used to just like doing things and then grabbing Amy's hand that it's reflexive. All right, and make sure that I call her out, and then accidentally double tap on the obstacle and immediately unsnap from it. Joy. So many little slowdowns on this run. Also a death. Fortunately, it was a death it only cost me not even a full minute, but that was on top of a bunch of other small slowdowns. It probably only cost me 40 seconds on chapter 2. All right, Amy. Yeah, you're where you're supposed to be. Okay, grab my hand. All right. You go there and do your thing. Oh wait, no, I'm doing these at the wrong time. It's the old way. Why are people calling me Danny Boy? Stop it. You sound like my grandmother. Yeah. Now that I've acknowledged it, gonna do it twice as much. I know that's how it goes. Gonna do it ironically. Oh, crap. I forgot to... Alright, well that one's a little late because I'm not used to hitting the splits. So that one's got about, I don't know, 10 seconds extra on it. Because I was busy watching chat. Weirdly, the texture glitch at the start of chapter 4 looks basically the same, even with the gamma turned back down. Alright, alright. Come on, give me this game. Yes! Yes, at least I have a little bit of luck. At least I have a little bit of luck with the run. Oh, extra luck. Bonus luck. Alright. Nope. Nope. Alright, that somehow worked out even though I couldn't see a single thing that was going on. Frickin'... Oh, frick. That frickin' execute. So there goes all of my luck. Alright. And just watch, I'm just gonna get... No, if you put it on PC, like, okay. There is no PC... Oh, and I need to be quick with that. There is no PC version. And the PC emulated version is just awful and runs at like no frames. Oh, yeah, and now I don't have a stick because Hmm. $4 minutes. Plus 4 minutes. Yeah, we're not even going to get under. We're not even going to get under 50 on this one. Weirdly, the game seems to run worse with the actual proper image settings. No. God damn. Where... What? Okay. But both of those guys came running over. So... Okay. Come on, grab my hand. There we go. Okay. Let's finish this miserable run off. Finish this miserable run, fix the settings, take a break. And then try again. Funny how it always hangs there for a couple seconds. All right, we need other hand. There we go. Amy, why would you turn your lantern off just because you opened a gate? I'm gonna need to bring Amy with me. I can't see Jack all. Come on, turn your lamp, turn on. Grab my hand. All right, there we go. Come on, Amy, grab my hand. No, now I'm just losing time for no reason at all. All right. If I can get back across the bridge, as long as I can see the bridge, I'm good. Yeah, there we go. I think. Yeah. No, can't can't see the wall. Oh God. Oh God. This was a mistake. Oh wait, those pluses are cumulative, not individual. Okay. Okay, so we're at a cumulative 522. That makes me feel a little bit better. It means that I didn't lose 4 minutes on chapter 4 alone. Oh. All right. Just as long as nothing goes terribly wrong. Actually, that came reasonably close to sub 50, even with all of the mistakes. I mean, it's only going to be like 51, maybe, not even. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that blue. All right. I hid chat a while ago because it was causing me more stress than it was worth. So we'll get back to the menu, and congratulations on a new best segment. I guess that was actually technically my best chapter 6. Uh, so, well, uh, congratulations me on shaving a couple seconds off of chapter 6. All right. Options, general, gamma, brightness. All right. Wait for that to finish. And we'll load. All right. I'm going to go to the washroom. Just take a quick walk, and then we'll try it again. All right. All right. All right. Okay. I got myself some walnuts to snack on. Some shelled walnuts. Got myself some water. Already had a bit of water. We got our settings back to where they belong. And what else? What else? Yeah. All right. We're recentered. Sorry for those of you who hate that chewing sound. Delicious. All right. All right. I guess tap to save. And so sum of best. Hey, look, my sum of best went. My theoretical best went down to 4508. Yeah. Yeah. All right. All right. Are we good? We're good. We're ready, right? We're good. We're good and ready. Run number 2. The real run. Run number 1 was a loser. Run number 1 was a waste of skin. I'm not even going to write it down. I don't remember what it was. I should have written it down. I should have written it down. All right. Anyway, 3, 2, 1. All right, everybody, welcome. This is Amy, developed by Vector Cell, released in 2012 for Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network. Amy is one of the worst games ever released to actual mass market retail. Walnuts are delicious. The game starts off with about a minute and a half of loading screens, which is, a great way to start a game. A substantial portion of this run is fixed into these loading screens and the sound of walnuts being eaten. I think only about 10 more seconds of loading. No, not even. So it's 110. 110 of loading just to start the game off. All right, so we're going to grab that board. We've turned the gamma and brightness all the way up so that we can actually see the walls. It's going to make things a lot easier. It means that there's a bunch of Steves that aren't going to be able to just hide in the shadows. You got to pull this thing out twice. If you only pull it out once, you can't get around it. So you got to pull it out twice. There are very few levels in the game where... So Lana has a hidden stamina meter. You can't see it. It's not on the UI anywhere. But it is a thing that exists. It's a thing that the game does track. Is Lana has a stamina value, and this is the only level in the speedrun where it actually comes into play at all, because it's the only one where you're actually running at full bore for long enough to hit it. And there we go. That right there. She hit her stamina limit. Alright, so this guy chose to spawn. He's a 2-hit. It's good if he spawns kind of where he did. Like, if you're going to have to fight him, you want him to spawn further back so that you can fight him without Marcello catching up. So we have to wait for Marcello to shuffle from where he was to where we are now. Which if Marcello catches up to you when you're fighting a zombie, he stops, obviously, to wait for the fight to happen. So ideally, there we go. So ideally, if there is going to be a bonus zombie there, you want to fight it before, like while Marcello is still running, so that you get the minimum amount of time. You don't want to make his waddle any slower. So we've got this DNA cracker for the genetic lock. Marcello has given it to us, and fortunately, the correct answer is always in the same place, so we can just run straight to it. And it sounds like, yeah, the train conductor did aggro this time and step out into the hallway. So we're just going to push right on past him. You're supposed to fight him, which is why they gave you the board first thing. But we're not going to do that. Oh, Marcello also chose to come all the way out to meet us. And there we are. Lana's out of stamina again. But we're going to open the door. And Marcello caught back up to us. Wait, what? No. No. Oh, God. No, no. Well, it's not going to be a great chapter 1. But hey, at least we didn't get stuck in the doorway with Marcello this time. All right. Good time getting out of the getting out of there. All right. All right. We're just going to zip around the corner, tell her to hit the button, get ourselves lined up perfectly with the door so that we can just zip right through the door. Push the button, Amy. And pretty close to being lined up perfectly with the door. I mean, about as close as it gets in this awful trash game. All right, check your walkie, doesn't work. Put on your harness. Eat some walnuts. All right, grab my hand, Amy. Go around Marcello. All right. And good. Yeah. Nobody asked, Marcello. Nobody asked. Literally 0 people asked. This is a good walnut moment. One of the things I'm trying to get better at, I'm going to focus on it. I'm going to mentally focus on it on this run, is not spamming the sensitive buttons. Also, that Steve at the crosswalk hasn't spawned in a couple of runs. That's good. All right. Also, Marcello wasn't in our way again. I don't know where he was. Good. Good positioning. All right. No. Marcello, you still coming? Yeah, we're good. I wonder if we even need to close this gate. Oh, did he make it through? He did. Good. Okay. All right, I'm making up, actually made up, I don't know, a decent amount of time there. We're still a bit behind. We close it because of the zombies, but I'm not sure if they're actually properly a real problem. Yeah, so we're about 10 seconds behind. That's not bad. All right, walnut time. Hmm, 32 seconds. The infestation has been going on for about an hour and a half. Oh. Why play 5th edition when you could play Dungeon World instead? Pathfinder is atrocious for beginners. Whatever the platonic ideal of good for beginners is, Pathfinder is the opposite of that. Did 5e get rid of the guy that they had hired that was a huge abuser? No. Zach S. Totally worked on 5th edition, which is why it's full of a whole bunch of like really, really bad OSRD garbage. Come on, grab my hand, Amy. Come on, grab my hand. Fourth edition is actually really good for beginners as long as you don't try to over-explain it, because all of the problems with fourth edition come from escalating problems in the latter parts of the game. The fact that it does at a surface level play a bit more like a board game helps people acclimate to it a lot more easily. In the same way that Dungeon World is a lot easier for beginners as well. Because, well, in sort of, I shouldn't say in a similar way, in a sort of counterpoint to how Dungeon World is good for beginners as well, because Dungeon World doesn't play like a typical tabletop RPG. It cuts out a lot of the more frustrating parts that are typical to, core style tabletop RPGs. So it's easier for, like, the thing is that Dungeon World actually plays the way that someone who has never played a tabletop RPG thinks it's going to play, in that you more or less state like, oh, I'm going to do thing. And then you have a number of basically generic abilities that then get slotted into whatever type of action you want to take. Oh, we got both of them this time. That's obnoxious. Come on. I missed him. I missed him. That blows. That blows. Am I still on chapter 2? Why do I feel like I missed something? Why am I at like 20 minutes? There we go. No, so OSRD is old school rules and design. It gets confusing because SRD and OGL are two things. So there's one too many. There's a few too many acronyms. OSRD is old school rules and design, which is basically a unimaginative throwback style to a prelapsarian version of first edition that imagines a fictional version of first edition that didn't actually exist and that played differently to how proponents want it to have actually played. So proponents of it also typically tend to fall into a category of being very DM hostile. That the relationship between the DM and players is adversarial. Also, the biggest proponent is a dude named one of the biggest proponents for it as a design movement is a guy named Zach S, who is just a complete piece of crap. Nope, wrong way. Why am I go? Frick. Oh, that time it let me just glitch right through it. Um, Lost a couple seconds there. Nah, the thing about 5th edition's magic system is you can literally just copy old spells. I mean, that's the closest thing it's got to a strength. Uh, I mean, hell, that's basically all Merles did anyway. I'm going to use one of these before I accidentally kill myself on trying to get around. No, come on. No, come on. Come on, grab my hand, Amy. Okay, good. Oh, hey, it's been a while since the art fell off. All right, let's do this in the right order this time. Okay, get to the board. Call for an Amy. Come on, Amy. Come on. Come on. No, come on. Timed that wrong. Yeah. It's not too bad. Okay. Right hand. Let's go. Let's go. Into the cutscene. Into the cutscene. All right. All right. Yeah, things have gotten pretty bad with the bit rate, and the last few minutes have been particularly bad. Like I'm watching it get really really choppy here. So I'm gonna turn it back to the previous settings. Oh crap! Ah, frick. Well, I'm not used to that. I'm not used to that. So I mean, we're on track to be better than last run. Well, I mean, even if it's Twitch, like I'm gonna change to settings that don't cause like that Twitch can handle, because I mean, it's all part of the same pipeline. I don't just want to sit here and be like, oh well, I could turn it down to something that Twitch can handle, but that's on Twitch's end. I mean, if Twitch can't handle it, it'll turn it down. Oh man. Frick. All right. That was very weird how it like seemed like it had worked and then didn't. So there's a minute. All right. Not even going to try it this time. I lied. I'm totally going to try it again. I think I only got one of them. All right. There we go. This is weird. Maybe it's just something about my system or whatever, but the game seems to actually run better with the gamma turned up. Like it on my end stutters less. One, two, three, 4, 5. All right. Sorry, bro. Sorry, guys. No, get out of my way. Cosper, please don't say that. No, please. Like I am asking in all seriousness, please knock it off. Don't even troll about it. I don't want ironic garbage. Just drop it. didn't have enough. Nope, I got my hand back on the controller just in time. All right. Now that I'm steering, I can actually take a drink. All right. All right. Yeah, it's not the worst time. We're behind by 2.5 minutes, which, as long as everything kind of goes right from here on out, it'll at least beat sub 50. You know, losing Amy on doors is obviously a problem, but you know, overall, I mean, and realistically, so last run gave us a good idea of like what an awful run looks like with the current routing, because just about everything that could go wrong went wrong. So it means that even in a like kind of worst case scenario, like it's going to come in under 55 minutes. All right, we need Amy in the other hand. No, right hand. And lining that up is actually still less time than waiting for this elevator, so that's good. All right, Amy, either hand for this. Doesn't matter. Turn on your lantern. Get through the door. We don't even technically need to pick that up, because it gives this to us at the beginning of the next level anyway. Amy? Oh, good. Oh, wait. No, can't close it. All right, come on. Are you... I can't tell where she is. There we are. I should start bringing Amy with me, just because it's a little bit safer if you can actually see the bridge. I'm just going to blame it on being kind of stressed out after that first run. I mean, this one's been okay. It's been far from truly awful. But so there's a few parts of the game that are like meant to be like actually dark, like you're supposed to. Sorry, I put the controller down to eat walnuts. They're supposed to be dark, like you're supposed to use the lantern in those areas. So like those are dark on purpose, but this VOD's going to be awful. but we're going to come in under 50. So that's kind of my goal, is as long as we can run very, very consistently under 50. All right, so it turns out if you can hear the sound, there's a bunch of controls that you can pre-cue. Not that being able to grab Amy's hand a half second sooner does literally anything on this level, given how it starts. All right. All right. All right. Just nothing go dramatically wrong here. And 48. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. Not great. Not bad. No, I'm going to be really cynical and respond to some. So it's like, does 5e have any classes that are like the Avenger in 4th edition? No, because that kind of I'm being cynical, but I'm also being deadly serious. Or I shouldn't say deadly serious. I'm being serious when I say that the design of the 4th edition Avenger is explicitly the kind of like air quote board gamey nonsense that the old school rules crowd like really, really, really hated. So not only is there nothing like the Avenger, there never will be, because it's too focused on movement to fit into 5th edition's engine. So yeah, it's not going to happen. Which sucks, because I mean it's a great example of one of the biggest flaw with 5th edition. Like 5th edition's a perfectly playable edition of Dungeons and Dragons. It's just boring. It's just very bland from a design standpoint. It's very conservative in sort of the worst way. It doesn't have its own identity. It made a lot of really like just mediocre changes. Changed a lot of things that didn't need changing. Threw out a bunch of rules that were actually like really, really, really good, and brought back some like truly abysmal core math that overly punishes players who try to do anything, that doesn't fall within a very tight with a very tight sort of behavior pattern. And yeah, so 13th Age is a lot of fun. It's got its problems, but a lot of its problems. I mean, every game of that level of complexity is going to have its problems and is going to have its sweet spots. But 13th Age at least is trying to do something really interesting and really inventive. They've got this great core mechanic in the escalation dice. Like that right there is just a fantastic mechanic that works. They don't do quite as much with it as I think they could, but maybe with sort of the first outing of that type of a mechanic, it's probably good. So the escalation dice it's basically a counter on how long combat, or I should say on how long combat has gone. It's all right. I'm going to back up a little bit. The escalation dice is a mechanic wherein all rolls that are made, whether it's attack rolls or damage rolls, have a modifier added to them, and this goes for both sides, both players and DM, have a value added equal to the escalation dice. And there are certain abilities that trigger when the escalation dice hits a certain value, or can't be used if the escalation die is above or below a certain value. So what this serves as is a like a throttle on the pace of combat, so that it ensures that combat is not going to last too long, but also kind of makes sure that it's not going to be too short. That characters can have access to certain types of really powerful abilities, but those abilities rely on the escalation dice hitting a certain value. So they can't just unload them in the opening round and nuke everything. They need to actually engage. So it's so like Fireball, I'm making up an example. So imagine if Fireball can't be used until the escalation dice hits a value of 3 or higher. So now, and then your support classes will have abilities that will engage with the escalation die specifically, either to raise its value or lower it. So you can do things like, a bard can raise the escalation die by 2 so that the rest of the party can unload their big abilities. But then that's also increasing the risk factor, because the monsters might have abilities that key off of an escalation die of 6. So you may want to try to keep it below 6 but above 3, so that everybody has access to all of their abilities, but the monster isn't going to pull out their giant spiked baseball bat of one-shot kill, stuff like that. It's a great mechanic. It is just a fantastic mechanic that more games need to utilize. And yeah. But yeah. This is called 13th Age. So, but now describing it makes it sound really, really good, because it's a really, really good idea. The actual system isn't quite as involved with it as I think they could be. I would really like to see a second edition of 13th Age that goes all in on sort of tactical interactions with the escalation die. Because they are there. It is definitely a core rule. It's just not quite as critical as I'm making it sound. I'm kind of painting a picture where it's combat sort of revolves around manipulating the escalation die. Yeah, 14th Age. But no, combat still does ultimately revolve around the things that you would normally associate with tabletop RPG combat. It's just it also has this this escalation die mechanic that is a layer to the combat. OSRD is old school rules and design. It's basically throwback design. I'm just going to re-say what I said earlier. It's an attempt to reclaim a prolapsarian version of first edition that never actually existed. So one of the things that a lot of old school rules and design people totally neglect, like they'll always make appeals to, even before first edition, like they'll always talk about like, you'll hear a lot of talk about this, like, oh well, how like Gary Gygax, how he played the game, how it was at his table, and the thing is they don't, but it's total pick and choose, basically to justify a version of an excessively hostile DM player relationship and a dungeon design that is by necessity overly brutal and punishing on players. The things that it ignores is the fact that the vast majority of published dungeon modules before second edition, like, and I say the vast majority, I mean literally like 90% of them were designed specifically for tournament play. So they're not meant to be an adventure that you go on with your regular group. I'm gonna add my time here just while I'm thinking about it. They're not meant to be the kind of thing that you would like actually play at your table. They're meant to play in a tournament setting where your table is racing against 10 other tables, and you're all actually competing. And so a lot of them, I mean, frankly, like a lot of them aren't very good. Like Temple of Elemental Evil is not actually very good. The Tomb of Horrors is actually just atrociously designed, but they've attained these sort of legendary status because they are, like very sort of fantastically punishing, but they're punishing specifically because they were designed for a tournament situation. And that ends up causing kind of a lot of design problems. The other thing that they tend to ignore is the nature of play that a lot of pre first edition rules and first edition rules are very much designed around, I don't want to say a level of player disposability, but that groups would either be like very, very large, you know, 10 to 15 players, or players would themselves have numerous characters. So if you think about this, like, okay, the fragility of a first edition magic user who may have like 1 or 2 hit points because they only get a D4 hit dice to, and one D4 hit dice to start. So they're going to have an average of 2.5 hit points. Is that you're not just playing a magic user. You're not just playing like Tim the sorcerer, and then when Tim takes a stray shot and dies, you're then sitting on the sideline. You've got 4 characters that you're playing. And so it's like it's your wizard dies, and it's like, okay, because they were actually playing it a lot more. Like they were playing it like a larger sort of multiplayer collaborative war game, because they had built it out of war game board games, and yeah. So ignoring these kind of these dimensions about the way that the game was actually played, or I shouldn't say was actually played, was intended to be played, ends up creating like a pretty huge disconnect. So second edition peels back on a bunch of stuff, but it also makes a bunch of these same sort of mistakes, because second edition starts bringing in a whole bunch of stuff. Like that's when the settings really exploded. Like they started exploding in first edition. Like, well, first edition was the current one, but it's second edition where you got like just tons and tons and tons of them. And so that's where like your Dragonlance comes in, and everything is basically pre-Dragonlance and post-Dragonlance, because Dragonlance is the moment that kind of changed everything about the way that people approached a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. That instead of it being explicitly about like kicking in dungeon doors and stealing loot, which was explicitly the core purpose prior to like from first edition and earlier, because characters would actually get experience based on how much gold they looted. that because of that Dragonlance moved it more in the direction of what we currently associate with it and how most people currently play, which is a sort of long running story with varying levels of political intrigue and other things, but that it's not just like we're going to a dungeon or a couple dungeons, but we're actually going and solving a mystery, or taking down the like evil ruler of wherever. And that story based kind of campaign really became the norm after Dragonlance came out. But the system wasn't always a really good fit for that kind of core narrative. Now, third edition's kind of its own thing in a hilarious way. Like, I don't think third edition's a failure by any means, but third edition is full of problems. Oh man, is it ever? Now, the problems with third edition, the mechanical problems with third edition, are very, very well documented. And then fourth edition's the one that decided to go all in on this Dragonlance style of campaign. So they threw everything into emulating and supporting this type of narrative outcome. That it's like, okay, your player characters are a lot more durable. They've got a lot more answers to problems. Their abilities interlock with each other a lot more. There's rules built in to kind of just have everything, or there's rules built in that allow players to basically fiat sort of what the outcome of things are going to be. And you've also got on the Dungeon Master side, you have rules that are explicitly built around creating predictable outcomes, so that the Dungeon Master can look at their entire story arc and be like, okay, here's where different beats are going to come in. This one's going to be, an easier encounter that is then rolls into like this other one, and then we're going to have a really, really big boss battle. And you can create boss battles that have like super predictable outcomes that you're going to be able to like really, really finely tune how things are going to go, and you can adjust them on the fly super easily, like in a way that you're confident as the game master that your changes are going to turn out a certain way. And it was fantastic at that. It did that job amazingly well. Most of its problems were actually really similar to third edition's problems, where it's like the later you got into the game, just the more and more bloated it got. It got very, very cumbersome to run high level characters. It got difficult to sort of track everything. But I mean, that was the same with third edition. Third edition high level and 3.5 high level characters are just a mess of moving parts. And yeah, so rather than actually learn from the failures of either third or fourth edition, fifth is just bland. It's just bland. So, yeah. Like, now, we can't just, I don't want to just like trash third edition endlessly. Third edition was critical to, I mean, I actually, now that I think about it, I haven't actually even really trashed it all that much in this talk. But third edition was critical. Like, if it hadn't come out, so the D20 system and the open game system, if D20 hadn't come out, tabletop role playing as a industry, even it is a very small industry, it is a very fragile industry, and if D20 hadn't come out, it probably would have just collapsed entirely, and everybody would have more or less given up on it. It would have gone back to being purely a sort of like fan run and created things. Physical books would have just stopped being published entirely. And so there's a lot of problems with it, but if it hadn't come out, then things would have just probably gone away entirely. So the ability to have sort of this core thing that everybody was able to like utilize and latch onto, it created a lot of player confidence. It created a lot of, players were more willing to like buy stuff and move around because they felt like they already knew what they were getting into, because they largely did, because everything switched over to D20. It created some over the long term, it created some problems with the fact that like nobody was really experimenting mechanically anymore, because, you were sort of expected to use D20. But yeah, so fourth edition, one of the great things it did was like it actually aggressively played with the mechanical assumptions of how the game interacted. And so out of fourth edition, sort of the responses to it, we got things like 13th Age, we got things like Dungeon World. People were more willing to look into, to go even further. If they're like, okay, if I want a game, you know, if fourth edition does a really good job of emulating this Dragonlance style narrative technique, what if we then went even further and tried to build a game system that even that focused on that even more aggressively, or focused on other sort of outcomes even more aggressively? And so game systems that had even necessarily already been around for a while, like that predated fourth, but had sort of really flown under the radar. So things like Dogs in the Vineyard. Oh, how am I? I can see book covers in my head, but I can't remember any of them. But so there's a bunch that came out during like late third edition. That in a lot of ways actually inspired fourth, but that then after fourth came out, wound up seeing a big boost in sales. Burning Wheel. So Burning Wheel had actually already been out for a while, but after fourth edition, Burning Wheel started doing better, because people were more willing to were more willing to break out of the D20 chokehold, and yeah. One of the worst change. So I played fifth edition back when it was still called D&D Next, when it was just in playtesting. I played it all through the playtest, and it was really heartbreaking to watch them, because it was actually on like a really good path for a while, and then late in the playtesting in the playtesting phase, they made a bunch of changes that were just really really bad. So one of the big things that they did, and I saw chat had actually already sort of mentioned this a little bit earlier. Like one of the things that ends up making warlocks really finicky is it's going to come down to whether or not your DM is going to let you have your short rests or not. So it was really late in the playtest that just out of nowhere, and I mean like it was like the last or the second last playtest package, where they suddenly changed the length of a short rest from 10 minutes to an hour. And the original wording of it was basically that you need like a short rest is exactly what it sounds like. It is a short rest of 10 minutes to of at least 10 minutes. That really kind of implied, that communicated that its narrative purpose is really to be a breather, to for the characters to collect themselves and get ready for what's coming. So a pause in the action doesn't quite count. Now, fourth edition, the way that it was worded in fourth edition was it came with specific examples that were like, hey, a short rest can be really anything the DM deems it is. That in sort of a normal situation it would be 10 minutes, but if the characters are explicitly fighting this huge epic long chain battle, maybe a short rest is only a matter of seconds, and it's like that moment they don't actually use this example, but the kind of example that they use is like in Avengers when it's like, okay, everybody's off fighting, and then they all come together, and like the camera does the big like spin around 360 moment that shows everybody off. That kind of a moment, that regroup moment, is narratively the short rest, even if it's only a matter of even if it's actually only a matter of seconds long. So changing it to like, oh, an hour, it creates an idea of sort of the world mechanics, and this is a very third edition kind of thing. Is third edition was aggressively on this idea of like, no, we are the rules map out how the world functions, and so that change from 10 minutes to an hour basically put several of the classes into an incredibly DM dependent space. That now, if you're playing a warlock or a fighter or certain kinds of paladins, you need to like aggressively defend your ability to take a short rest. And yeah. So yeah. Sure, but the rules also encourage you to be loose with time, so I don't see why a DM would ignore that unless they're dicks, which the forums love. The problem is that an hour, we have too good of an internal idea of how long an hour is. Or I should say, we don't necessarily have a good idea of it, but we have enough of an idea that, like, okay, an hour is actually a serious amount of time. You know, that if we're thinking, like, all right, you're in a dungeon and you've just like killed the first wave of kobolds that like ran at you, that an hour is like, okay, I can see 10 minutes, that like 10 minutes, everybody on the other side, like maybe they're still scrambling, maybe like, news is still getting out there. Like you can, okay, deep breath. An hour is like, is pushing it. It's just, the language of it creates a mental expectation that just breaks a lot of people. So, yeah. So that's kind of, yeah, one of the other big changes actually. So the paladin as it's delivered in the book is actually kind of bad relative to how it used to be. It's one of the better classes in the game. It's one of the ones that at least tries to do something pretty inventive with its core mechanics. The warlock, the 5th edition warlock, is actually pretty solid, minus the whole short rest thing, which is kind of a contingent problem. But the paladin, they actually broke it compared to where it was in the playtest. So back in the playtest, they still had Channel Divinity as a leftover from 4th edition, as a really good leftover from 4th edition. And then again, late in the playtest, they just dropped it. And so the Paladin's Smite ability went from keying off of Channel Divinity charges, where you were trading Smite explicitly against one or two other abilities, like Turn Undead or a few other like path-dependent abilities. They dropped that, and they went to just like, okay, Smite just burns spell slots. And that was actually incredibly damaging to the class, because it means that in the vast majority of situations, Smite is just the right answer. So most paladins, most players playing paladins figure this out pretty quickly. Even like, this isn't a forum thing. They figure it out really quickly that it's like, oh, well, I'm just going to save all my spell slots for Smite, because I can use it on demand. I can use it after I've hit. So if we're fighting an important fight and I know that like we got to get this guy down, and I roll a crit, yeah, I'm going to burn my highest level spell slot smite, and we're just going to vaporize this guy. Like, of course I'm going to do that. And so it means that your spell slots are all being held in reserve for being used on smite. And so there's a whole bunch of cool utility spells that the support spells that the paladin has that nobody ever uses because players just instinctively want to save those, because what if I need to smite? And so they don't have as many spell slots as they could have gotten, and players end up having this like weird sort of behavioral tick in the way that they approach it. Whereas what they should have done, they should have held on to Channel Divinity, because then you control smite charges directly through how many charges of Channel Divinity the character has, and then you just you can give them more spell slots, because you can now tune their spell list to be very passive, very support. The most powerful spells are all require like channeling, things like that, and so they don't need to be capped at like just this ridiculously small number of slots. They can actually have more magic and a little bit more to do, and yeah. So the ranger as presented in the book is abysmal. The sorcerer, I'm trying to remember. Unfortunately, I don't have my 5th edition books handy. I lent them to a friend, so they're not here right now. So part of it, like I am going off of memory a little bit here. The sorcerer was okay. I mostly remember the wild sorcerer having the gigantic table of less fun to play than to read. This is kind of a long-running sort of problem with a lot of D&D supplements. A lot of D&D supplements, like, and this goes back years and years and years and years and years, is that they're actually like really bad from a game standpoint, and nobody has ever actually really played them because they're just kind of fun to read. And Wild Sorcerer is one of those things where it's like it's fun for a little while, but over a long enough period of time, like around the 8th time that you like grow feathers instead of a beard, it's just kind of like all right, moving on. How about we just say it failed. But yeah, the rest of the sorcerer's design, I remember it being okay. Like this, I'm recollecting my impressions. I remember it being okay from a sort of structural standpoint, but the actual numbers I felt were off. That the whole like point systems are kind of tricky, and I think the point system was like decent, like the way that it works out in the 5th edition sorcerer is decent, but the specific numbers, I had an issue with them. It was not, it didn't flow as well as I thought it should, but yeah. So yeah. The core 4th edition Ranger. Actually, no, the core 4th edition Ranger was a beast. It was actually like kind of broken in the other direction, just because Twin Strike was like so self-evidently valuable. No, the fourth edition Ranger was a monster. Actually, they were really good. The fourth edition Ranger was really good. If you want to talk about sort of the idea of like sloppy balance, that it's like, okay, we want to have certain classes that are like, maybe more tuning focused, like it's really for like the player who wants to get like down into the weeds about like how all of their stuff interacts. And we want to have other classes that really are just kind of like a point and click class. The Ranger wound up being absurdly good for that in fourth edition. That if you had a player at your table who was just like, look, I don't care what I play. I just want to be here and chat with you all, and I don't want to have to like read my skill list or anything like that. You could just be like, okay, you're a ranged, you're a bow using ranger. You're a dex based bow using ranger. When your turn comes up, just twin shot at something, and you're good. And we'll make sure that you've got an appropriate level bow, and just go. It was really good for that. So yeah. It did like the gap the gap between them and everybody else was a little much as a result of that. Like it definitely needed toning down, but it did make them really, really useful as a like just give it like for the player who just wants to be there. It made them great for that. Mark your quarry and shoot it. Just yeah. Yeah. I really, really liked, oh man, fifth edition fighters were so rad. They were so rad. They were so good. They were fifth edition paladins. Just the things that they did with the defender as a concept in fifth edition were like really good, and the fighter was just great. The fighter was just so good. They were a lot of fun because fourth edition fighters, fourth edition tanks. This was always the complaint that it's like, oh, it's like an MMO tank, as though that's a bad thing. That it's like, well, maybe MMOs have realized, maybe the people designing MMOs have figured out that there is something fun in that role, and being able to actively take on a defensive role, and being able to like manipulate the battlefield as that type of a character, and the people designing Fourth who ingested that idea, they were correct, because being able to like shut down the opponent, like that when the DM is like, all right, my guy, my Knoll warlord is gonna do this, and just be able to say like, no they don't, because I'm gonna pin their ass to the ground, was really good. Also, I'm still very much in love with fourth edition's ability naming scheme. That you can tell the writers had a lot of fun with them. So there was one, what was it called? It was like Go Get 'em Boys. It was a high level, oh dang it. Why am I forgetting the name of the class? The martial leader. But it was basically like you got a lot of really cool abilities. It was just like it's like Go Get 'em Boys, that just gives everybody on all of your allies, just they get a free attack against, it's like, all right, just everybody gets to take a chop right now. It was great. I loved it. Yeah, Warlords. Dang it, how did I forget that? Warlord, and Warlord is another class that's never going to come back, because it was specifically the OSRD crowd really, really, really hates Warlords. And that was, yeah, Warlords were really good. Bards were good. Yeah, it was so much fun. Leaders in fourth are so much fun. They're a lot of fun. They fixed the be a healer problem by you actually, the really funny thing about it is that the main way that they went about doing it was that there was no pure stand in the back and do the healing type character until very, very late in development. Now, when they did finally come out with it, it was a really good take on it, like super powerful, but like really passive kind of build. I liked it. I played one for a while, and it was a lot of fun. Like you could go full support, but generally speaking, you were very much like everything was a lot more geared towards offensive support. So you would actually need to like get offensive in order to like provide buffs and whatnot to your party. It was a really really good design track. And World of Warcraft actually wound up absorbing a lot of those ideas. You can see it a lot in Mists of Pandaria. The initial sort of design of the monk and the Fistweaver monk was very much taking their notes from there. Unfortunately, WoW then like pulled back on it because Fistweavers were too much fun and too rad, and everybody liked them too much. So, yeah. But oh, Vex, you got a capture card? What capture card did you get? Or maybe we can have that as a private conversation on like Twitter or something. Because so with getting the PS3, like yeah, so the PS3 can't turn off high definition copy protection. So the main way around it is actually to use you either need to use something in between that will strip it, or basically capture off of a internal preview, which is what it sounds like you're doing, or use analog. So you would need to get the component out cable for the PS3, and then obviously it would need to be a capture card that has component in. So yeah. The Diamond GC2000. I don't know that one. Let me look that up. Game capture Diamond GC2000, Diamond Multimedia. Oh, it looks like that has yeah, that's got YPBPR. Yeah. You could totally just get the analog cable, and you'll be able to do it directly into OBS instead of needing to like bounce through yeah. So, yeah. It's so just going analog. With the PS3, the main workaround for HDCP is actually to just go analog. So, I don't know if it's a good card or a bad card. It looks like it's USB 3. I don't. System requirements. Intel Core 2 Duo. One available USB 2.0 port. Oh no. Okay. Well, that's going to be, yeah, all right. It's going to be a little bit slow. It doesn't have, if it's using a USB 2.0 port, then it doesn't have the bandwidth to really do anything above standard definition. So you're going to end up with probably a substantial delay on that. But I mean, yeah. But yeah, USB 2.0 just doesn't have the throughput for HD like it. Yeah, yeah. If it's got an Ethernet out, yeah, there would be your workaround, because if it's got an Ethernet out, then that's going to give you. Actually, let's see what's it got. It doesn't actually list that on the thing I'm looking at here, but I would be willing to bet that whatever it has for an Ethernet controller is going to be faster than USB 2. So it would at the very least be able to handle 720, which is what 90% of PS3 games output at anyway. So yeah. 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 Oh, fourth is actually great. It is actually great. It has its problems, but you know, literally every edition of D&D has its problems. The one with the fewest problems still has a huge problem. So the one with the fewest problems is actually, if you go all the way back to the 80s, the one that's just called Dungeons and Dragons, which is currently, if you can find a used copy of the what's it called? The Rules Cyclopedia. It is mechanically probably the strongest, most consistent, simplest version of Dungeons and Dragons. It's great, and its huge glaring problem is that it is absurd to try and learn because the layout of the book is abysmal. So that's its main problem, is that it's abysmal to actually go through the process of learning, because the book is not written to actually teach you how to play the game. But no, yeah, what I would recommend, like, fourth edition in the low levels 1 through 10, is fantastic, from like all the way from 1 through 10. It's just it's great. It's tight. It's very well tuned. You can, as a DM, really get the pace where you want it to be. Fights can drag, but it's a very simple workaround to that, which is, as a DM, just embracing narrative techniques. And these are all the kinds of things that are actually recommended if you dig deep into the Dungeon Master's Guide. But a lot of people kind of overlook them. Is that it's like, okay, you know, you can call it as a DM. If a fight is like basically over but not actually over, just make a deal with your players. Just say that it's like, okay, how about, or like if it's over, if it's really just over, you know, and they're just mopping up, just end it. Just say it's like, all right, you mop up the rest of it. If it's in kind of a like just really kind of grindy place, just straight up make a deal with them. Just say it's like, all right, everybody, you know, if between the 5 of you, you spend 3, you know, I'll trade you 3 healing surges, and then this is just over. You know, you finish it off, because the main drama of this encounter, the narrative drama of this encounter, is done with, but there's still some threat. If threat is gone, the moment threat is gone, the encounter's over. Even if in theory it's going to like chip off, you know, another dozen hit points or whatever. It's just like, no. Like, if a dozen hit points is not actually threat, you know, if the threat is gone, the encounter is over. So, yeah. I guess also I should, the old version. This, I guess its other main flaw is that it still uses THAC0 to hit armor class 0, which is not actually it's a bad system, but it's not technically a bad system. It is when you know how when you learn it, and you're using, like, and you're prepared for it, and you know your way around it, it functions very well, and it does its job quite elegantly. The problem is that it's very difficult to learn, and for many people, it is just impossible to wrap their heads around. So that's kind of that's definitely a problem. And yeah, yeah. My throat's getting pretty raw. It's 11:30. We did our runs 48 minutes. I mean, that's that's actually only like 2.5 minutes shorter than my awful first run. So it wasn't exactly a great night for runs. We saw a lot of like, oh man, what did we see? We saw a new bug. What was it? We saw a new glitch. I don't remember what the new glitch was we saw, but we did see one. And we did also, this wasn't a new glitch, but it was funny on that first run when we couldn't, on chapter 5, the very first zombie that you're supposed to sneak up behind, we couldn't actually see him. Like it was too dark and I didn't know where he was, and so I whiffed the shot. And so the other two zombies, the ones in like the dude in the Letterman jacket and the other one, they aggroed onto Lana instead of they aggroed onto Lana instead of attacking her, or no, they attacked her instead of just insta killing her. And the dude the dude that you're supposed to chump shot continued to just stand there and didn't move, and we just ignored him because the because our weapon was broken. It was very funny. It was very funny and very stupid. But yeah, so it was a night, and now we've spent actually more time just talking about Dungeons and Dragons than we actually spent speedrunning Amy tonight. So that was a good use of time. And now you know way too much about Dan's opinions on role playing design philosophy. And yeah, fourth edition gets a bad rap. It's actually a really good edition of Dungeons and Dragons. You should maybe check it out. You can get the books. You get the books for cheap. And yeah, so I'm gonna just call it now and gonna push the button in a couple seconds, and we'll finish up any conversations in chat. So yeah, pushing the button now. Have a good night. Keep going in chat. Good night.